Did you read the last story? This issue is even more exciting. Welcome to subscribe. Chapter 14. The ice breaking point of the North Star chart. The star viewing hall in the underground palace. The star viewing hall deep in the underground palace seemed to be soaked in solidified bloody moonlight. The broken crystals inlaid on the dome, illuminated by the kerosene lamps, formed the starry sky on the night of the 1462 Holy War. The silver moon was directly below the North Star, forming a straight line with the rose-shaped birthmark in the underground palace of Notre Dame. Adrian's fingertips glided across the bronze celestial globe, and the sound of the gears turning, mixed with the water seeping from the sarcophagus in the distance, struck an urgent rhythm in the enclosed space. Isabella stared at the rose pattern on the base of the celestial globe, a sealing symbol she had seen in the dynamic fragments of the mural in Chapter 7. The cover of Adrian's pocket watch cast a shadow on the star chart. The edge of the Arctic ice layer map inside glowed faintly, exactly coinciding with the coordinates pointed to by the pointer of the celestial globe. After the 1462 Holy War, the church mages set a seal on the Arctic ice layer with the blood of 7 holy maidens. Adrian's voice dropped 8 octaves lower than usual. His fingertips stopped at the starry sky position of the winter solstice in 1897. Every 100 years, when the silver moon coincides with the rose constellation, a 3-hour crack will appear in the ice layer. Now, the celestial globe shows that the crack will open at noon on the winter solstice. She noticed that half a piece of paper was stuck between the gears of the celestial globe, which was exactly the manuscript of the North Star chart torn from the City Hall in Chapter 5. When her birthmark touched the surface of the instrument, the broken crystals suddenly hummed. The starry sky on the dome began to flow and finally converged into a bloody arrow in the due north direction, pointing directly at the coordinates inside Adrian's pocket. Watch. This is the location where the blood of the first-generation prince fell. Adrian took off his pocket watch. The etched map on the inner side of the watch cover showed a 3-dimensional ice structure in the bloody light. In 1890, your father infiltrated the Arctic and found the fragment of the Holy Scripture of Blood under the ice layer. But the Ventru Council regarded the existence of a half-breed vessel as a disgrace. Isabella's fingers stroked the 1918 on the map, recalling the engraving on the stone wall of the sewer in Chapter 6. Suddenly, the celestial globe shook violently. One of the crystals representing the silver moon burst, and the fragments scratched the back of her hand. Where the blood dripped, the star chart automatically completed the scene of the winter solstice in 1980. The bloody liquid gushing out from the crack in the Arctic ice layer was spreading along the North Atlantic current. Her throat tightened. The peak moment of the silver moon curse. Adrian caught the falling pointer of the celestial globe, which was in the shape of an unengraved silver dagger. Leonardo's laboratory log shows that they are developing an ice core virus that can survive in temperate zones. And your blood is the key to opening the ice layer. The damp stone wall exuded a chill. Isabella suddenly grabbed Adrian's wrist, where there was an old scar in the shape of her birthmark. Who exactly was my mother? She thought of the cross necklace of the Bruya Elder in Chapter 11, and the group photo of 3 people in Charlotte's diary in Chapter 18. Why are her name and Charlotte's engraved inside your wedding ring? Adrian's fingers suddenly tightened, and the chain of the pocket watch creaked under the strain. The silhouette of the Holy Maiden who had appeared in the dynamic fragments of the mural in Chapter 7 was now projected onto his eyes through the celestial globe. In 1885, your father and I met her in the Ventru laboratory. She was human, but volunteered to be injected with the first-generation blood because she believed that the half-breed gene could make the virus coexist with humans. The bloody liquid flowed into the star viewing hall along the stone cracks and formed the outline of the Arctic Circle on the ground. Isabella remembered that in the memory of the infected person in Chapter 13, when her father was sealing the fragment of the Holy Scripture, the woman wearing the cross necklace was standing beside him. The cross her mother had stuffed into her before her death was now burning in her pocket. Charlotte and your mother were selected as experimental subjects for the vessel cultivation plan. Adrian took out the blood-stained star chart from the hidden compartment, with the Dracula family emblem on the edge. But after injection, Charlotte mutated into a blood plague carrier, and your mother, double quotes. He suddenly fell silent. his eyes fixed on the birthmark on the side of Isabella's neck. The celestial globe emitted a harsh buzz, and the crystal ball representing the Arctic began to melt, revealing the frozen first-generation blood inside. The virus double helix structure appeared on Isabella's retina, exactly the same as the blood form that the first-generation prince injected into the reliquary in the mural in Chapter 7. When she touched the crystal ball, the heartbeat sound under the ice layer suddenly became clear. It was her mother's heartbeat frequency. She survived. Adrian's voice was as cold as ice water. Because of you and her body. Your blood had started to neutralize the virus since the embryonic stage. The Ventru Council wanted to destroy the experimental subjects, and your father, he exchanged his Ventru bloodline for your birth. The roar of the collapse of the underground palace stone gate came from afar. It might be the pursuers of the Dracula faction. Adrian stuffed the silver dagger into her palm. The rose-shaped groove on the handle fit her birthmark perfectly. The crack on the winter solstice only lasts for 3 hours. We must reach the Arctic before the embrace. Your blood can activate the reliquary and also restart the seal. Isabella stared at the newly emerged engraving AW1890 inside the dagger, the year her father was executed. She suddenly thought of the unfinished silver dagger in the laboratory in Chapter 9 and the look in Adrian's eyes when he said, "This knife was supposed to avenge Charlotte." Had he already known that she would become a vessel at that time? Why me? She leaned against the celestial globe, allowing the bloody liquid to flood over the soles of her shoes. The Holy Maiden in the mural in Chapter 7 had a rose-shaped birthmark, and so do I now. Are we of the same bloodline? Adrian, who was turning to adjust the celestial globe, paused. The cuff slipped, revealing the Ventru family brand. The Holy Maiden in 1462 was the sister of the first-generation head of the Ventru family. The church injected the first-generation virus into her blood, trying to create a vessel that could control the blood race. And you, he pointed at the flowing starry sky on the dome, you are the perfect fusion of the Holy Maiden's bloodline and the prince's virus. Suddenly, the celestial globe went out of control, and all the pointers pointed to the North Star. Isabella's birthmark burned violently, and she saw a vision of 1918. Leonardo injected her blood into the Arctic ice layer, and the virus seeped into the North Atlantic with the melted water. Bloody rose-shaped patterns appeared simultaneously on the streets of New York, London, and Shanghai. The prophecy says that the blood of the vessel will either freeze the Arctic or ignite the world. Adrian tore off the silver chain on the celestial globe, which was Charlotte's relic mentioned in Chapter 30. But the fragment of the Holy Scripture has been tampered with. The real choice is yours. Use your blood to repair the seal or become a symbiote of the virus. She thought of the back view of her father sealing the fragment of the reliquary into the ice layer in the memory of the infected person in Chapter 13, and the map inside Adrian's broken pocket watch in Chapter 10. At this moment, he was circling the Type B blood distribution area on the star chart, exactly the same as the red circles on the list in the City Hall in Chapter 5. The Type B blood of the Lucas family can suppress the virus. Adrian suddenly grabbed her wrist. The silver cufflink left a cold mark on her skin. But your AB-type half-breed blood can activate both the seal and the evolution. This is the balance your father fought for with his life. Suddenly, the underground palace shook violently. The rose emblem of the celestial globe resonated with Isabella's birthmark, and the crystals on the dome rained down. Adrian pressed the pocket watch in the center of the star chart. The sound of the gears turning was in sync with her heartbeat, and the ice layer coordinates in the due north direction began to drip blood. It was her mother's blood, Charlotte's blood, and the blood of the Holy Maidens from 100 years ago. When your father was executed back then, Adrian shouted amidst the collapsing debris, he made me swear to take you to the Arctic, not for the seal, but for you to see with your own eyes that the consciousness of the first-generation prince had long been integrated into the virus, and he was waiting for you to become the new host. Isabella's fingertips glided across the base of the celestial globe, where the same double helix pattern as on the silver dagger was engraved. When her blood seeped into the pattern, the entire star viewing hall suddenly became transparent, and a real-time projection of the Arctic ice layer appeared above. Leonardo's ice-breaking ship, Bloody Dawn, was cutting through the ice surface, and the drill bit was flashing a red light with the same frequency as her birthmark. They're coming. Adrian stuffed the remaining pages of the star chart into her arms. Take this and find the reliquary under the ice layer. Inside it is the purified blood of the Holy Maiden, the only thing that can resist the consciousness of the prince. The celestial globe disintegrated in the vibration, revealing an inner silver made heart model, exactly the same as the silver made heart left by her father in chapter 68. Isabella suddenly understood why she saw the memory of her father's execution every time she touched the fragment of the Holy Scripture. He was not a traitor, but had used his heart to give her 10 years of human life. At noon on the winter solstice, when the silver moon coincides with the rose constellation, Adrian's voice suddenly calmed down. The hands of the pocket watch pointed to December 22nd, 1897. The ice layer crack will absorb all the virus energy approaching it, including the first-generation blood in your body. This is your last chance as a human. She looked at the gradually clear Arctic coordinates on the star chart, thinking of her father's old photo in the medicine cabinet in chapter 2, and the moment Adrian woke her up with the silver chain when she lost control in chapter 8. Now, the silver chain was wrapped around the Tsahai of the celestial globe, and the 3 words, Charlotte, engraved at the end of the chain glowed faintly in the blood-colored light. What if I choose the embrace? She clenched the silver dagger, and the rose pattern on the handle was absorbing the blood from her palm. Adrian didn't answer, but pointed to the projected future image of the celestial globe. The Arctic ice layer completely collapsed. The bloody phantom of the first-generation prince stood on the boiling sea of blood, and in her reflection, the rose pattern on her neck had spread to her heart, where 2 heartbeats were throbbing, one belonging to a human and the other to the virus. The low growl of mechanical hounds came from the entrance of the underground palace. The serum troops of the Dracula faction were approaching. Adrian suddenly tore open his shirt, and the rose-shaped scar on his left chest fit her birthmark perfectly. In 1890, when I executed your father on behalf of the council, he implanted a fragment of the reliquary into my heart. Only then would the council believe me and let me get close to you. Isabella took a half step back and bumped into the base of the celestial globe. What was engraved, there was not a church relief, but a scene from the laboratory in 1890. Her father injected the first-generation blood into her mother. Adrian was recording data beside them, and Charlotte's urn was placed on the experimental table. You've long known that I'm the vessel. Her voice was trembling. Since you saw the birthmark of the opera singer on the night of the opera premiere, you've been calculating the frequency of my blood, right? Adrian looked down at the pocket watch, and the photo inside the watch cover slipped out. In the winter of 1890, her father, mother, Charlotte, and he were standing in front of Notre Dame. Her mother's hand was on her bulging abdomen, and his gaze was fixed on the rose-shaped birthmark on the side of her mother's neck. Yes, he finally admitted. But your father was right. In your blood, there is the purification power that Charlotte didn't complete, and your mother's hope for humanity. Suddenly, the top of the star viewing hall collapsed. The broken glass of the rose window formed the North Star chart as it fell. Isabella caught the pocket watch and found that the hands had stopped. The last image projected by the celestial globe was that 100 years later, a boy was standing in front of the ice layer holding the same silver dagger. On his neck, a rose-shaped pattern identical to hers was glowing. Believe it or not, Adrian pressed the handle of the silver dagger against her birthmark, and the rose pattern finally became complete. Under the Arctic ice layer, there is not only the seal of the first-generation prince, but also your mother's reliquary, and the inheritance of the silver blood craftsman left by the Holy Maiden back then, which can end the curse. The red light of the mechanical hounds penetrated the underground palace. Isabella looked at the gradually coinciding silver moon and rose on the star chart and finally understood why the infected would kneel before her. Her blood was the key to the virus and also the salvation of humanity. When Adrian pushed her towards the hidden door, she suddenly saw the pain in his eyes. It was not guilt towards Charlotte, but fear of the impending disappearance of the vessel. Remember, he shouted amidst the explosion, the embrace is not the end, but the starting point of virus symbiosis. And your choice will turn the 1918 flu into the end of the world, or the dawn. The hidden door closed behind her. Isabella touched the Arctic coordinates inside the pocket watch, and somehow a new line of blood words had appeared there. Find the Type B blood descendants of the White family. Their silverware can awaken the humanity in your blood. The fragments of the celestial globe were burning in her palm, and the pattern they formed was exactly the gesture of the Holy Maiden pointing to the Arctic in the mural in Chapter 7. In the distance, the whistle of Leonardo's ice-breaking ship penetrated the underground palace, resonating with her heartbeat. The winter solstice sunlight shone into the star viewing hall for the first time. On the birthmark on her neck, the rose pattern and the silver moon pattern finally coincided, and the last line of small characters on the base of the celestial globe became visible in the blood-colored light. The vessel is the virus, and the virus is hope. This issue ends here. The next issue will be even more exciting. Subscribe as soon as possible.